Hi, my name is Tiffany Newton. In my inquiry into instructional strategies, what resonated the most with me throughout my research was student-centered strategies. My background in teaching started with Reggio Emilia style learning and then also with conscious discipline. So with those two things in mind, student-centered practices are what I'm comfortable with and what I find myself using the most in my classroom. Student-centered strategies like cooperative learning and inquiry-based instruction are methods that I'm currently using, and they're also ones that I find to be really engaging for the students, especially once direct instruction has already been used. I've already introduced the topic, I've explained it, and we know what we're doing. Now we're just diving deeper. Instructional strategies are influenced by learning theories. So, for example, cognitive theory is closely related to student-centered practices of concept attainment in the sense that it seeks to understand students and how they learn and how they can be active participants in their learning. Another one is constructivist theory. That one is closely tied to collaborative practices of student-centered instructional strategies. It's important to remember that education and effective instruction are data-driven and research-based. So when we're using theories and research to inform our instruction, we can be intentional in our practices as teachers, but we can also choose the correct strategy for our students and for the lesson. In the future, I plan to incorporate a mix of both direct and student-centered instruction. I think it's important to use both and to use them fluidly and to use what makes sense for the lesson and what makes sense for your students and the demographic of your classroom and their specific needs. I'm interested in incorporating some student-centered practices like concept attainment and then also game-based learning. I think would really resonate with my current classroom right now, especially. They love rewards, they love tokens, quests, journeys of learning. So that's something I'd be curious to see and to implement for student engagement and for critical thinking skills. So that concludes my reflection on the assignment that we had this week on instructional strategies. I think it's important to keep in mind that you want to mix and that you might use one thing and it might land in one lesson, but in the next lesson, you're going to have to think about it differently, choose a different theory, or choose a different strategy that resonates with your classroom and the current lesson. Thank you.